Oh, you said we were going to a place Walt Disney built.
No, Peter, I said supported.
This wasn't just a jab at a single movie. It was a direct hit on an entire era of Disney's so-called woke reboots. And the most shocking part, Rachel Zegler's name didn't even need to be said. The message landed loud and ruthless. This wasn't satire. It was a takedown. Audiences are burned out, tired of reimagined classics that feel more like lectures than entertainment. And now, fair or not, Zegler has become the face of that fatigue. In one moment on Family Guy, Peter Griffin strolls through Disneyland, puzzled, but the real sting is in the background. A roller coaster labeled Disney stock plummets behind him. It's not just a gag. It's a warning shot. A cultural icon declaring that Disney's empire isn't just slipping, it's spiraling, dragged down by its relentless push for politically driven reinvention. And then it takes an even sharper turn. Peter flips on the TV, spots a character, and casually says, "Whoa, she's hot." Simple line, brutal implication.
That girl's hot.
That's a guy.
That other guy's handsome.
That's a girl.
That cat is cute.
That's a dog.
What is everything?
The phrase, "what is everything," has become a meme because it perfectly reflects how many viewers feel today, like everything they once knew is being rewritten, renamed, and reshaped, while they're expected to keep up without asking questions. Family Guy turned that frustration into a punchline, delivering it with a kind of fearless accuracy only a show built on shock value can pull off. But for Disney, it wasn't just a joke, it was a warning shot. And just when it seemed like Family Guy had said it all, South Park took things even further. In their special episode, Joining the Panderverse, they didn't just mock Snow White, they dismantled Disney's entire strategy. They portrayed a version of executive Kathleen Kennedy wielding a magical artifact called the Panderstone, whose power was to insert diverse women into every franchise, regardless of narrative sense. The episode spirals into a surreal multiverse where Cartman is haunted by rebooted characters stripped of any original charm, replaced instead with lifeless, corporate-approved identities. It's brutal satire, but the message hit hard. This isn't diversity, it's a checklist. If Family Guy threw punches, South Park launched a full-scale takedown, and Disney, for all its branding muscle, was left with no room to laugh.
Tell me exactly what it is you're afraid of.
I keep having the same dream. Everywhere I look, people are being replaced.
Okay, and who do you think is going to have you replaced?
Them. The puppet masters. The last time I had the dream, I was walking down the school hallway. And I see Butters. And he's like, "Hey, Eric, you want to see what my mom packed me for lunch?" And that's when I start to notice that something's wrong. Everyone I cared about has been systematically...
Then came the line that lit up the internet. In South Park's brutal parody, their version of Kathleen Kennedy dramatically raises her hands and shouts, "Put a chick in it and make her gay." A single sentence that instantly went viral and echoed far beyond the episode. It wasn't just a joke, it became a rallying cry for critics of Disney's recent creative direction. To many, it summed up everything wrong with the studio's approach. Not genuine progress, but box-ticking representation that felt forced, formulaic, and completely disconnected from real storytelling.
I think we're really great people, but in the real world we're not. We're terrible people. You run your life in a very selfish way, and you think you're doing good when you're actually not. And at the same time, it's how do democracies turn back into dictatorships? It's happened through history forever now.
But the takedown didn't end with cartoons. In a moment that quickly went viral, George Lucas, the very creator of Star Wars, took a swipe at Kathleen Kennedy right to her face during a live panel. It wasn't loud or aggressive, but the message landed hard. Lucas mocked the creative choices Disney had made since taking over his beloved franchise, and the audience laughed, but not the kind of laugh that brushes things off. It was sharp, uneasy, and laced with truth. You could feel the discomfort in the room. It wasn't just a jab, it was the original storyteller calling out what his universe had become.
Having her year where her Snow White movie is going to lose $200 million for Disney, but doing so, she also screwed over Tangled in the process. When Rachel Zegler was cast as Snow White, she joined one of Disney's biggest franchises, which was Disney Princess, where they've done $45 billion in merchandise sales just in the last 25 years. With the goal of trying to keep that brand fresh, they've tried to do live-action reboots of the Princess movies, and they have had success so far, with Cinderella making over $500 million on a budget of $90 million, and then Beauty and the Beast making $1.3 billion. But the last two attempts for Disney just haven't worked, where Halle Bailey's Little Mermaid lost $25 million for Disney, and Rachel Rachel Zegler's Snow White is way worse and it could lose up to $200 million. Now, because of those two failures, Disney's pausing their other attempts at making live-action reboots, including the live-action Tangled movie. Tangled was actually the most expensive animated movie of all time, costing $260 million, and it only made $592 million, which actually means it lost money factoring marketing ticket splits. Still, Disney saw potential in Tangled having more success in the live-action movie, but now due to the failure of the Rachel Zegler films, they're no longer going to be pursuing that or other projects. So hey, she failed so bad, she did something good getting rid of the reboots and without.
That's how deep the spiral has gone. The very studio that once defined cinematic magic is now being roasted by animated shows, political pundits, YouTube commentators, and even its own legendary creators. And caught dead center in this cultural storm? Rachel Zegler. While Snow White is still limping from its public backlash, Disney is reportedly lining up its next billion-dollar gamble, a live-action remake of Tangled. And once again, Zegler's name is attached. Online reaction: not great. In fact, it's been explosive. With a rumored budget north of $500 million, including marketing, Tangled is set to be Disney's most expensive remake ever. But after losing nearly $200 million on Snow White, there's a real sense of panic brewing behind closed doors. Even longtime Disney loyalists are asking, why double down with a lead who's already facing massive public resistance?
I'm embarrassed of this because I chose a filter that made me look pink as hell. But you thought you did something. You thought you did something by pointing out that I, like every other person on planet Earth, use filters on my photos. But you know what you really got? Embarrassed. Let me tell you why this is embarrassing. It's because in this photo, I'm still an olive-toned queen. You don't have to give me any more racial identity confusion than I already have. Let me tell you something. Soy una latina orgullosa y tengo muchos privilegios porque tengo piel clara. But I will never try to bait people by pretending that I look different than I do. Shouldn't even have to explain myself, but go pick on someone else who's actually doing harm by race.
The backlash to Tangled is so intense, it's already gaining steam before a single frame is filmed, and it's not because Rachel Zegler lacks talent. The real issue: audiences feel like they're being sold a corporate agenda, not a compelling story. And when you're throwing $500 million behind that brand, expectations skyrocket. People want to cheer for something that feels genuine, inspiring, bulletproof. Right now, Disney's remake doesn't feel like any of those things. And if you need proof of the disconnect, look no further than the now infamous TikTok where Rachel walked into an empty theater showing Snow White. What should have been a celebratory moment, flowers in hand, a walk into her own movie screening, turned into an awkward visual of near-total silence. Rows of empty seats. No buzz. No fans. No hype. It looked more like a Tuesday matinee than a major Disney event. The clip went viral for all the wrong reasons. People mocked it, saying she brought flowers to a funeral. Some even called it Disney's loneliest premiere. But underneath the jokes was a harsh reality. The audience isn't connecting. Not with the film. Not with the messaging. And not with Rachel. A major part of that disconnect stems from her casting. Snow White has always been described in the classic tale as having skin as white as snow, so when Disney cast a Latina actress in the lead role, the internet ignited. Critics claimed it betrayed the source material. Rachel clapped back on TikTok, defending her role and stressing the need for modern representation. But instead of bridging the gap, the back and forth only widened it.
Tonight, the 23-year-old actress posted a new message. Hi everyone, I would like to sincerely apologize for the election post I shared on my Instagram last week. I let my emotions get the best of me. Hatred and anger have caused us to move further and further away from peace and understanding, and I am sorry I contributed to the negative.
The controversy didn't start and stop with casting. It escalated because of how it was handled. Rachel Zegler didn't just defend her role as Snow White, she criticized the original film itself. She called it weird, outdated, and even suggested the Prince character gave off red flag energy. That's where many fans drew a hard line. If you're stepping into a legacy role, they argued, at least show some respect for the source. At least act like you care about the story that made it iconic in the first place. But things quickly went beyond just film commentary. The backlash turned political. Rachel Zegler became one of several Hollywood figures to publicly support Palestine during the ongoing Israel-Gaza conflict, even signing a ceasefire letter. While her stance alone may not have sparked a firestorm, her co-star Gal Gadot is famously pro-Israel. And just like that, a Disney fairy tale turned into a battleground for geopolitical tension. The situation hit a boiling point when Lebanon officially banned Snow White, not because of Rachel, but because of Gadot. Lebanon has had Gal Gadot on a boycott list for years due to her Israeli military background, meaning any project she's in gets automatically blocked. And then, another wave hit. An old clip of Rachel resurfaced, one in which she said something that quickly reignited outrage online. The video went viral. She apologized. But in today's internet culture, apologies rarely erase the stain. The damage was done, and the backlash had only deepened.
Ida, 2 more, please. So I finally tell them, hey, I came here to be at the seminar, not run it.
By this point, Rachel Zegler was making headlines more for controversy than for her craft. No matter how polished the trailers looked or how often Disney tried to spin the story, the narrative had already slipped out of their control. And the knockout punch? The numbers. Snow White reportedly cost between $240–270 million to make, and yet it limped to just $184 million worldwide. Even Disney insiders couldn't deny it flopped. But behind the scenes, the frustration boiled over. Producer Mark Platt's son, Jonah Platt, didn't mince words. He openly said what many in the industry were already whispering. Rachel's interviews, her online persona, the way she carried the press tour, it all made things worse. He claimed the tone she set alienated audiences and drowned out the film itself. The movie wasn't just struggling against fan fatigue or woke accusations, it was battling the backlash that followed Rachel's every word. And now, it's no longer a question of whether Snow White failed. That part's already history. The real question is what happens next, for Rachel, for Disney, and for the future of their billion-dollar remakes.
Having her year where her Snow White movie is going to lose $200 million for Disney, but doing so, she also screwed over Tangled in the process. When Rachel Zegler was cast as Snow White, she joined one of Disney's biggest franchises, which was Disney Princess, where they've done $45 billion in merchandise sales just in the last 25 years. With the goal of trying to keep that brand fresh, they've tried to do live-action reboots to the Princess movies, and they have had success so far, with Cinderella making over $500 million on a budget of $90 million, and then Beauty and the Beast making $1.3 billion. But the last 2 attempts for Disney just haven't worked, where Halle Bailey's Little Mermaid lost $25 million for Disney, and Rachel Zegler's Snow White is way worse and it could lose up to $200 million. Now, because of those 2 failures, Disney's pausing their other attempts at making live-action reboots, including the live-action Tangled movie. Which Tangled was actually the most expensive animated movie of all time, costing $260 million, and it only made $592 million, which actually means it lost money factoring marketing ticket splits. Still, Disney saw potential in Tangled having more success in the live-action movie, but now due to the failure of the Rachel Zegler films, they're no longer going to be pursuing that or other projects. So hey, she failed so bad she did something good getting rid of the reboots without.
The real question now isn't whether Snow White failed, it's what Disney does next. Animated shows are dragging them, longtime fans are tuning out, and their most expensive remake yet, Tangled hasn't even started filming. Even the most loyal Disney defenders are falling silent. But the satire? It's still going strong. And one of the darkest hits may have slipped under the radar, courtesy of Family Guy. In the infamous Quagmire's Dad episode, the show introduced a trans character named Ida. While the attempt may have been progressive for its time, the execution sparked outrage, especially a scene where Brian vomits repeatedly after realizing he slept with her. The backlash was massive. But instead of backing down, Family Guy leaned in harder.
Fair. No.
Fearless. Absolutely. And now that they're going after Disney's casting choices, identity politics, and financial disasters, there's no reason to think they're backing off anytime soon. Which brings us to the one cartoon titan that's still quiet, but may not be for long, The Simpsons. For over 30 years, the show has mocked politicians, celebrities, and pop culture icons. And while Disney now owns The Simpsons, that hasn't stopped the Yellow family from poking fun at Marvel burnout, Star Wars fatigue, and the never-ending cycle of remakes. It's only a matter of time before Snow White, Rachel Zegler, or even the Tangled reboot becomes their next punchline. And that could be a major problem. Unlike other animated shows, The Simpsons still carries mainstream cultural credibility. If they launch an episode ridiculing Disney's modern era, it won't just sting, it'll feel like confirmation. Confirmation that the magic is fading. That the audience isn't buying what Disney is selling. That even their own properties are turning on them.